we spoke about being useful to men. And I said that, attraction, being attractive and beautiful, those help. But when you become a useful person to people, it makes you both attractive and beautiful. We also spoke about how we can be helpful to men, and there were a couple of suggestions, particularly Tasha was very helpful in sharing some of her experiences. But there is a bit of a caveat that I want to talk about briefly before we get into tonight's subject, is that you shouldn't be too useful, too helpful. You shouldn't be doing things for men that they should do for themselves. You shouldn't be overdoing it. In other words, if you become too useful, if you start being the wife before you are actually the wife, then you perhaps will not become the wife. So what we want to do is to empower men. It is quite good to help them if they are in a tight spot or a bad spot, and helpfulness is very, very important in the lives of human beings. However, we don't want to disempower people. And like someone said, that some people tend to prefer people who treat them badly, but I don't think that that is the case. But what you want to do if you are going to be helping someone is to help them to help themselves. So don't overdo it if you're being useful. Be tactful, be helpful, and empower people to help themselves. I hope that is understood. And let us go on now to discuss what we want to start talking about tonight. How to avoid falling in love with a jerk. And I did ask the question, do you know someone who got involved with a jerk? Do you know someone who got involved with a jerk? Some of you said yes. Some of you said, and I don't know if you have actually experienced a jerk in your life. I'm not going to go down the personal route. However, I'm going to ask you to look at these pictures, these images of these four characters, and tell me, if you can, which one of these you believe is a jerk. Who do you believe of these characters might be a jerk? Is it the guy in the top left-hand corner, the guy on the top right-hand corner, or the girl in the bottom left-hand corner, or this clown in the bottom right-hand corner? Who do you think is a jerk? It'll be interesting to get your feedback on this. It could be any of those people, or it could be none of them. So my second question is, who or what is a jerk? Who or what is a jerk? Can you tell me what or who you would consider to be a jerk? I know many of you know someone who might have been a jerk, or who might have gotten involved with a jerk, but what would you consider, or who would you consider a jerk to be? Because actually you can't tell a jerk by looking at them. There are times that there are some telltale signs. However, a jerk could come in many form, many fashion. So let us see if you can give me an explanation, a definition of what you would consider and who you would consider a jerk to be. A jerk is anyone whose behavior is very destructive to your well-being and development. Anyone who comes into your life, and their actions or non-actions, their behavior, if it has a negative impact on your well-being, on your development over a period of time, then that person is displaying jerkish behavior, particularly if you've pointed out to that person that those courses, that the course of action or his behavior is impacting on you in a negative way, and they continue doing that, then that person is displaying what I call jerkish behavior. Now, here's what Ellen White has to say in Adventist Home, and we have to be very, very careful. She says, it is from the marriage hour that many, that word many, that's a typographical error, many date their success or failure in this life and their hopes in the future life. Now think about that. That is a very powerful statement. That when you get involved with someone, you are either dating your success or your failure. In fact, I actually want to read further from Adventist Home, expand a bit on this. Here is what she says. Now, this step, which is the step towards marriage, taken unwisely, is one of the most effective means of ruining the usefulness of men and women. Life becomes a burden, a curse. No one can so effectively ruin a woman's happiness and usefulness and make life a heart-sickening burden as her own husband. And no one can do 100th part as much to chill the hopes and aspirations of a man, to paralyze his energies and ruin his influence and prospects as his own wife. Whoa! That is a mouthful. From 1 Kings, I think 11, verse 4. It says, "For when Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and he was not wholeheartedly devoted to the Lord his God, as his father David had been." And later on, I'm going to talk more about why God told Israel particularly, not to get involved in with the heathen nations. Now, how can you tell? What can you do to tell whether or not a person who comes into your life is a jerk, is good for you, bad for you, whether or not you should go ahead and get married to them, or should you search for another? There are 4 basic categories of criteria that you can use. The first one is what God would say. The second one is you. The third is others. And then the fourth is the person himself or herself. So let's start with God. Obviously, you could ask yourself the question, would God approve of the relationship that you're having with this person? What would God say? Have you spoken to God? What does he say in the Bible? And does it fit the criteria by which the Bible speaks about relating and relationship? Is this person's, the values, the spiritual values that the person display, are they in sync with your spiritual values, or more importantly, the values of the Bible? You know, the Bible spoke, quite clearly about being very careful with mixing. And I remember the story. Do you remember the story of Balaam and Balak? Balak was a heathen king, and he wanted to get the Israelites cursed. He knew that the God that they had was so powerful that he couldn't do battle with them. So he conscripted Balaam to put a curse on them. And you know the story very well, the donkey that spoke, and when Balaam actually tried to curse them, blessing, a tumbled out of his mouth. And then Balaam came up with an interesting strategy, which is to get the heathen women to mingle with the people of Israel and the men of Israel, and they would eventually begin to intermarry and intermix. And guess what? Bingo. That worked effectively. Here's what Deuteronomy 7:3-4 says. Do not intermarry with them. Do not give your daughters to their sons, or take their daughters for your sons, because they will turn your hearts away from following me to serve other gods. Then the anger of the Lord will burn against you, and he will swiftly destroy you. And that is what happened to Solomon. I gave this quote earlier. Now, when I was doing a survey some years ago, I came across a pastor. She was a Pentecostal pastor, and she gave me this illustration. I was asking the question about, how do we tell if someone is the one for us? And she said to me, Hilton, all of us, you, myself, those of you who are listening, all have a ministry. We were created for a purpose, and God gave us gifts, talents, and skills to minister to other people. So all of us have a ministry. And we also have what she called a ministry partner. The partner or person who would support and cause your ministry to grow, expand, develop, blossom, and become successful. But guess what? If you get the wrong person in your life, that person could destroy your ministry. Remember the quote that I just read, and I like to repeat part of it. She says, it's from the marriage hour that many men and women date their success or failure in this life and their hopes of the future life. So we've got to be very careful with whether or not a person can support, can be an advocate for you and your ministry, or will they effectively mute you, annul what you're trying to do, destroy what you're trying to do. Okay, all of you know this quote from 1 Corinthians 6, be not unequally yoked. And I am not going to go through the exegesis of this topic, of this scripture, because I think you fully well know that it is really not just only speaking about romantic and marriage partners, but in many other areas of your life. Now, I have to tell you this, that many of us, particularly those of us who are Christians, need to be aware that the Spirit guides, the Spirit leads. And a lot of people, because they are powerfully attracted to the other human being, they override the still small voice that from time to time prompt, tell, prod, and suggest to you that what you're doing, where you're going, is not the right thing. The Spirit may send people to speak to you. The Spirit may put different obstacles in your way. But if you override them, if you override these obstacles, the Spirit may shut the door. If you ask, and pray, the Spirit may do things, and because of your attraction, and I know some people who literally, against all odds, continue relating and even forming a marriage alliance with people who definitely were up to no good, and their whole life turned out to be a disaster. So listen to the Spirit, speak to the Spirit, and the Spirit will tell you. The Spirit will give you dreams or even visions, or speak to your mind and your conscience. The Spirit will send people in your life. The Spirit will cause things to happen that will show you, look, this is not really the person for you. And then coming on to that is, what is your intuition telling you? What's your intuition? The intuition really is what some people call your gut feeling. Somehow, somewhere deep within us, our, some people call it the subconscious mind, can sense and suss. I had a friend of mine who told me the other day, okay, this guy who was really into her wanted to have a relationship, and she said, I just sense that something is off. Something is not right. He's saying the right things, he's doing the right things, but there is something didn't add up. She just had that feelings, and and she was asking, what should she do? And it turned out that she was right. The guy was already married, and but while she didn't know what it was, somehow there was that gut feeling that something is not right here. And many times you need to listen to your intuition. Many people override the intuition, they bulldoze the gut feeling, they plow ahead in spite of what their feelings tell them, and they end up in a very sorry state. And usually, if you ask the person, didn't you know? Why did you did you have any signs? They will tell you yes. They actually knew. There were some signs. They felt it, but they didn't pay attention to the intuition. And here are some questions that you probably need to write down. I could send these to you. I picked those from a variety of sources, mainly Ellen White and some other resources. One of the questions you can ask yourself, will this person increase your sphere of influence? That's a nice way of saying, is this person going to help you? Is this person going to help you to become better? Will they ennoble you? That word is not used very much nowadays. The term ennoble. I think it's borrowed from more the olden times where royalty was a big thing. Will they empower you? Will they help you to become more noble? Are they safe? Now here's a question that you probably need. Is this person safe? And I'm not just talking about safe. There's a big drive nowadays about safeguarding. Those of you who are in that field would know the term. There are laws that come out about safeguarding the vulnerable people. But you need to ask it, am I safe with this person? How do they actually make you feel? Because sometimes you could be in the presence of someone, and when you go away, when you step away, when you're finished with them, you're either drained or you feel terrible. The person makes you feel terrible about yourself. They do things and say things and you feel bad or off. So how do they make you feel emotionally? Do you want to become like this person? Obviously, you know the statement, birds of a feather flock together. Show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. Believe it or not, people that you hang about with, they rub off on you. You may not think so, you may not even feel it. I remember one time I used to be among some people. I am a person, I don't swear, I don't talk bad words, I don't use swear words. But these guys, they use it like everyday language. And something happened that really got me upset and angry, and bam, out of my mouth, I heard myself swearing. I heard myself swearing. It wasn't part of me, but somehow or the other, because I was with this gang of boys, because I was part and parcel, because I spent time with them, guess what? Their words became part of my language. So would you like to become like this person? Just look at the person. This person, would I like to become? Believe it or not, they will have a very heavy influence on who you become. Have you ever seen or known someone, and after they got in a relationship, somehow you realize that this person, when they speak this is not the person you knew. They started sounding like the other person that they're with. And here's a nice question I want you to think about. Do you want your children to become like this person? Because obviously, if they become the father or the mother, they will develop traits and inherit traits like them. And do you want that to happen? Now, is this person good for you? Is the person good for you spiritually? Is the person good for you financially? You know, there are many people who would suck you dry financially. There are many people, I know this girl, this woman who fell in love with this man, and she even allowed him to move in, only to find out a year or two later that he was one of the most wanted fraudsters in all of England. And guess what? She lost her job because of her association with this person. And she went through a terrible financial time. She almost lost her house too. So is the person good for you financially? Is the person good for you emotionally? And how about the person's lifestyle? Is that the kind of lifestyle you want to be able to live with? Do you want to socialize in the company of that person? Do you want people to see you with this individual and bring him into your or her into your social circles? And this is important. This is important. Are they teachable? Is this individual teachable? By teachable, I mean, are they willing to learn? Are they willing not just to learn things generally, but are they willing to learn about you? Are they willing to learn who you are? Or don't they care? Do they have a conscience? And by this, what I mean is, does the person feel what you feel? If the person did or does something that you don't like, and you tell the person, look, I don't like that. If they say something that cut across your heart, cut across your emotions, and really hurt you, and they said it in a way or in the company of other people, and you say, well, look, what you said or how you said it in public, it really, I don't like it, it hurt me. And this person don't really take what you're saying on board. They don't care about your feelings. They don't have a conscience. They run roughshod over you. Then you might need to rethink whether or not you're going to be in a relationship with this person. Okay, I'm going to go on to a slightly different aspect of it. What are other people saying about this individual? But before I do that, let me just check to see what's going on in the chat room. Oh, before I go on now, guys, let me hear your comments on some of the things that I have said. Have you ever experienced any such thing where someone has had a profoundly terrible impact on you? Someone who you invited in your life? Or have you seen someone's life literally go down the drain because of the association they made with someone they love? One of the things I thought about was the fact that even in the church there are wolves in sheep clothing. Jesus warned against that. Paul spoke about that. So there are predators in the church, so we've got to be very careful. Even in the church, we know that many priests have been convicted of abusing people. There are many pastors who also abuse young people and people in their charge. So we have to also we still need to do our due diligence, even though someone professes to be a Christian. I think of a story of this young lady who was a virgin. She kept herself pure and sanctified well into her 30s. And this man got converted, came into the church, and saw her, liked her, and pursued her. And at that point in time in her life, she was really looking forward to getting someone with whom she could make a family. Interestingly, although this young man who got converted, he was literally a womanizer before he got converted. Now, after he is converted, he has given up that life, and people trust that he has. And the girl opened herself to having a relationship with him. And things went on. A year or two in, he didn't propose, and eventually he got her pregnant. And everybody was so shocked, because he was someone who spent most of her life dedicated to Christ, and now she's pregnant. And unfortunately, the story didn't end well. He literally left her and went to look for someone else that he could get married to. Now, just think about that. Think about that. That is really jerkish behavior. And, one of the things I want to look at is to be careful about the past history of the person. What are other people saying about whoever is trying to knock at your heart's door, or this person that you might be interested in? What's their reputation? What is their reputation? I just told you a story of this guy who came into the church, and obviously he professed to have been converted and changed. However, one of the things we need to do is to give people time to prove themselves. So, his reputation as a womanizer before he got converted, perhaps this girl needed to look into his history. What is his or her romantic history? Because that has a bearing. And interestingly nowadays, you need to find out not only what their romantic history is, you probably need to find out, I'm afraid to say this because this is in a Christian context, whether or not this person has been the same gender all his or her life. Because we know that this gender thing is a big deal nowadays. Or you need to find out what sexual preferences this person has had in his or her life. Because there are people who, quote unquote, worship on the other side of the altar. You know what I'm talking about. And they may have changed. But this is a bit of information that you need to know. You need to know their sexual preferences, what type of sexual preferences they had, their relationship history, what kind of gender they might have been, and whether or not they were born the gender that they now express themselves as. Because even that is coming into the church. So you need to do your due diligence to find out, has this person always been the person that he or she professed to be? What are their friends and family saying about them? Let me just say this, and I've always said this. You might have heard me saying this too. An individual shouldn't be the only source of information about him or herself. Can I say that again? The person shouldn't be the only source of information about himself or herself. You need to find a wide variety of sources that could corroborate what this person is telling you. It doesn't mean that you have to listen to everybody, but you need to factor in what people are saying. Some people might be very cruel, some people might be critical, but you need to have a wide variety of data for you to make an informed decision about them. Ellen White says you need to know the family history, and obviously we are aware of the fact that however a person is brought up, they are more than likely to replicate that family environment. Plus, Ellen White goes on to say that you need to check to see how this person treats the parent, especially the opposite gender parent. If he's a man, how does he treat his mom? How does he treat his sister? How does he treat his siblings? If it's a girl, how does she treat her dad? Or how does she respond and respect her parents? Because that gives a great indication of what the person is. And I have here why. I have just explained why. But let me hear you. Why do you think it is important for people to get to know the friends and family of the person that they're trying to court, or who's trying to court them? Do you have any ideas other than the ones that I've just shared as to why it is important to know and become familiar with the friend and the friends and family of someone who's coming into your life? Okay, friends and family, you need to get them involved. Talk to the exes. This is a tricky one. This is a hot potato, because many of us don't want to have anything to do with the ex of this individual, and usually they get painted with very horrible strokes of the brush. You tend to think that your current spouse, the exes, had treated him or her terribly. However, if many of the exes say the same thing, if many people say that this guy has an anger management issue, if many of the exes say that this girl is a drama queen, then it stands to reason that by weight of the evidence, they are what the exes say they are, regardless to how much they say they are not. So, one is not saying that you have to believe all of the exes or everything they say, but it is important that you listen if you're in a position, or if you're in touch, or if you can speak to any of the exes. Now, finally, let's talk about the person. The person. You need to be clear about there are red flags. There's an interesting viral video of a Jamaican comedian who speak about red flags, and I like that. She makes me laugh. What are some of the red flags you should look for? Past record, we spoke about that. Relationship history, family history, finances, and even do a criminal check on the person. You never know. What's their attitude? What's their attitude to you, your family, your religious belief, and your development? How do they position themselves? Are they an advocate, or are they someone who don't care about the things that you are involved with? And by the way, you have to check, is this person emotionally available already? Are they financially ready? Are they spiritually or psychologically ready? You need to be really very careful of that. And then I have a checklist. I call it the IC13 checklist. Can I just run through this, people? Let me just run through the IC13 checklist. It's based on 1 Corinthians chapter 13. I, which is a Roman numeral for number 1, first, and C is Corinthians, and 13 is chapter 13. Now, does his or her words match what he or she does? Do they walk the talk? Are they gifted but uncaring, unfeeling, and insensitive? That should be insensitive. Are they very intelligent and know all the theory about love, but they don't connect with you emotionally? Is he or she open to contribute to, are he or she open to let you contribute to them? There are some people who only want to be kind and do things for you, but they don't want you to do anything for them. That is a bit. Are they willing to show you their vulnerable parts and allow you to help? Are they patient and tolerant of the mistake of others? Do they have a kind or tender heart? Are they envious and jealous of other people and what they have to say? Are they arrogant and boastful, proud and full of self? Are they rude, ill-mannered, and impolite? Is this person spoiled and always want his or her own way? Do they have anger management issues and fly off the handle easily? Are they overly critical of other people and always want to have something and always have something bad to say about people? Be very careful of those people. Are they happy to see bad things happen to others? Are they able to endure tough times knowing that God will come through for them? And so those are the negatives. Let's look at the positives that you should be looking for. You should be looking for someone who's patient, kind, generous, humble, courteous, unselfish, have a good disposition, good temper, sincere, a person who can persevere, a person who has endurance. And I think that's it. That's it, everyone.